As you know, India Power Talk is an initiative wherein we invite international thought leaders and domain experts to create an easily accessible digital reservoir of their insights, experiences, and strategies on how to revive Indian economy. This would benefit not just Indian entrepreneurs, but also international business, investors, strategic partners who are part of or intend to invest in India. We have been inviting entrepreneurs, economists, professors, investment bankers, inventors, scientists, lawyers, chartered accountants, and other senior professionals with experience in diverse sectors who could contribute on the subject. To talk on leadership of 2020 and beyond, today we have a highly experienced, enthusiastic business transformation consultant, CEO of Seed and Lead. He is the author of 2 internationally best-selling books on Amazon, 7 essential traits of leaders for developing unique leadership styles, and 7 essential traits of coaches for developing unique leadership coaching style. He is a global leader in leadership development and business transformation with an working experience of 35 years in more than 20 countries. He has worked for 6 Fortune 100 companies in the service industry. As a result of his passion for learning and sharing his business expertise and experience with others, he is a powerful mentor, consultant, coach, author, and speaker. Let me welcome my dear friend, Phil Bohlendar, CEO Seed and Lead on the India Power Talk. Phil, could you begin by giving us your interpretation of the term leadership? And also, could you then quickly give us the highlights of your journey with global leaders?
Yes, in fact, I really enjoyed your intro because there was a word that really caught my attention. I believe that leadership is really about creating that vision. So as leaders, we have a responsibility and an accountability to be able to look into the future. I think Bill Gates even alluded to it as well. So for me, throughout my entire career, it was about looking forward, looking to the vision. So my career, as you mentioned, 35 years. So starting in 1982 in a very small town outside of Houston, never dreaming that I would end up being a global leader. However, I was very fortunate to be able to take advantage of opportunities, not only to work domestically outside of the Houston area, but then eventually be able to work outside of the United States, and most notably to be able to work in India, Brazil, Russia, and China. And so that all came as a result of me looking at opportunities to further my career and having a really, really strong network of people who supported the work that I did.
Could you share your work experience of even big countries, in particular China and India? The comparison may be useful to share.
In 2003, the business coaches that I was working with created a program whereby leaders from the United States went to China. And when we went to China, we were involved in a forum for about 3 weeks with Chinese leaders, US leaders, and Russian leaders. And so it gave me a flavor and an understanding of what it is to work in another country. And to say that I was a sponge is an understatement. I took advantage of every opportunity. I asked questions. I watched everybody. It was a really exciting time. And I will tell you that when I was going through it in 2003, I thought it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I never imagined that I would go back and work in China as extensively as I did. And so because I met Russians there, it gave me an opportunity through invitation from them to go to Russia and work in Russia. So that was an amazing opportunity as well, to be in Russia and see firsthand how leaders in Russia lead their organizations. And then I was very fortunate to work for Accenture, and in working for Accenture, my talent development role was a global role, and it allowed me to go to Brazil, and I did work in Brazil for a few weeks, and that was very exciting because I got to go to the cities of Sao Paulo, which are very, very big city, and then I went to Curitiba, which is a much smaller city. So I got a really good sense of what it was to do business in Brazil. And then finally, and most fortunately, I was able to go to India and work in several cities in India and work in outsourcing organizations and call centers.
Any specific incidents that you recollect of India? Any good memories of India?
Yes, many, many good memories, many good memories. In fact, one of the things that I will tell you is that the hospitality, the warmth, the acceptance, the embracing of me being in India in the offices was really refreshing, because let's face it, when you're a change agent, people aren't necessarily opening the door for you and bringing you in because they have a resistance to change. One of my favorite stories was, I was in a training that was being done for call center attendants. And so they were actually giving them, I guess it was called sensitivity training for American culture. And so this was an opportunity for these call center reps to be able to understand to understand through the training what it was like to interact with Americans on the phone. And so as I was sitting there, it was interesting because everything was spot on. The training was amazing. It was really, I mean, it was a great experience for me. And then the trainer said something, and to this day, I don't remember what it was, but when she said it, I thought, well, we do it a little bit differently. So then I asked my host, I said, is it possible for me to share a little bit of a variance to what she just trained? He said, of course. And they, parted the room, and I went to the front of it, and I looked back, and there was all this engagement. Everyone was just like hanging on every word I was saying. And as a result of that, they all said to me afterwards, what a great opportunity it was to learn from me directly how their people that they talk to on the other end of the line might experience that thing. So I have a lot of really, really good memories. In fact, I'm still in touch with all of my colleagues from when I made my trips to India.
Great. Phil, today every organization is operating on a global scale. And I guess, therefore, leadership necessarily will have to be constantly adapting and changing and meeting the requirements of the several countries. Now, are there any specific challenges that you see for global leader when it comes to people from different countries and cultures?
So it was very interesting. I was working with an individual who was from Mexico, and he had responsibilities for working very closely with China, rather. And so what happened was, I was getting word that there was some conflict, that things were not going very well. And so what happened was, I asked him to come into my office, and I sat down with him, and I said, help me understand how you're interacting when you're on the phone or video. And so he went through it, and what I realized was there was a clash of cultures. And so I said to him, I said, I really want you to understand better how to do business with your colleagues in China. And so I asked him to go off and find the books, because there's all these books and research that you can do on understanding how to do business in other cultures. And when he came back to me, he said, I think I know it now. I think I can improve the situation. And so what happened was, I said to him, I said, hand me your business card. And he reached out like this with one hand. And I said to him, I said, you're not ready to do business in China. He said, no. I said, no. And so then I showed him how to hand the card. And he said, I didn't know that. And I said, okay, here's what I want to do. I said, I want you to go to China with me. So sure enough, I took him to China, and I was able to give him a firsthand experience. And in that firsthand experience, when he came back, he truly understood it. Now, that might be an extreme situation, especially now with COVID and whatnot. However, what I believe is that when you ask, when you observe, when you listen, you can see how other cultures do business and how they relate to each other.
What is an ideal global leadership style, Phil, according to you, and in particular, maybe the post-COVID-19 situation?
Excellent. Thank you for that. I will underpin this by saying that I'm a strong proponent of developing your unique leadership style. I think that being intentional about leadership, especially when it comes to vision and impact on other people, it is absolutely essential that you have a developed leadership style. And for me, a developed leadership style has components that include skills, competencies, and traits. So it's really about being clear about it, being intentional about it, and understanding something as simple as, am I the kind of leader that's going to ask people to do things, or am I the kind of leader who's going to tell people how to do things? And understanding that and making sure that that unique style that you create is working in the environment that you work in. And it's very interesting with COVID, because as a change agent, there were a lot of times where making change was very, very challenging. And I'm happy to say that my leadership style supported making those changes, and it was a great experience. However, when COVID hit, what was interesting was everyone became a change agent. Everyone was figuring out how to do things differently. So instead of me being the, the Lone Ranger as a change agent, now I looked out into the business world and everyone was changing how they were doing business. And so it was really refreshing for me to see that. However, unfortunately, through some of it, there were some missing pieces to it. So for me, whether it's before the COVID, during the COVID, or post-COVID, I think that it's absolutely necessary for a leader to be decisive. And that decisiveness has to be based on facts. The second thing is to be compassionate towards people. And then third and final for me, because I like to talk in threes, is leaders really have to be exemplary when it comes to communication. Your secret sauce as a leader is to listen. When you listen to others, you're building the compassion and you're able to make decisions based on the data that they share with you. So the three things are really interacted with each other.
Now, Phil, let me move and ask you about your two best-selling Amazon selling books, 7 Essential Traits of Leaders and 7 Essential Traits of Coaches. Now, both are for developing unique leadership style. Could you talk a little bit about both these books?
These two books actually are part of a series. There'll be a third book. And when I wrote the first book, it sort of just dawned on me that if I'm talking about developing a leadership style, how am I being a part of the solution? How am I serving and supporting others when developing that leadership style? So what happened was LEADERS is an acronym, and it's traits that people can integrate into their leadership style. And so when I wrote that book, I thought, this is great. I can put this book out there. I can, have bragging rights to it. And it's kind of exciting to have the seal that says I'm a bestseller. And then the next book came to me, and it said, well, what about 7 Essential Traits of Coaches? And use coaches as an acronym as well, because the primary focus of your leadership style was to be a coach and a mentor to others. That's the style. So then when I wrote that book, I was like, okay, so now I have two. I can put one at this end and I can put one at this end. And then I woke up another morning and realized that there's another book, and it's called 7 Essential Traits of Mentors. So now I'm in the process of framing out that book, and we'll release that book this year. And instead of 1 or 2, now there'll be 3 books that will be focused on how individuals can develop their unique leadership style, how they can integrate coaching into that style, and then finally, as a mentor, how can you be a mentor according to those traits? Or if you're a leader looking for a mentor, what are some of the things that you would look for in that mentor?
Phil, can you tell us one trait which cuts across all the 3 books?
It's listening. It's listening. It really is. And so while it's in the acronym for leaders, it's embedded in the coaches underneath each of the 7 traits. And what I will tell you is I just recently did 2 programs. They're, learning programs where I had an audience of leaders who wanted to learn more about their leadership style. And in both of those, when I talked about listening, what was most interesting for me was that when I shared with them, help me understand, tell me more, is there more? Those 3 phrases in terms of getting people to continue to talk, they thought I gave them the key to the kingdom. They were so amazed that all you had to do was say to somebody, help me understand. Absolutely. Can you tell me more? Is there more you want me to know? It's listening. It's the key to all of it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in my experience, I have seen people listen to respond. People don't listen to understand. Do you think leadership can be taught? And considering the rapidly growing startup world, particularly, do you think that we need to teach leadership right from a school level?
Yeah, so a couple things around this, and I'm really glad you asked me about this because I'm a firstborn. I'm a firstborn male in my family, and I did a lot of research throughout my leadership career around what is it to be a firstborn, because in the United States Most of the presidents that have been elected were firstborns. Most of the CEs are firstborns, and that's male and female both. And so there's something inherent about being a firstborn. And when I talk about my leadership style, I do talk about being the eldest of 3 younger sisters, and how that was probably my first leadership role, was leading my sisters and supporting my sisters. So I think there is an opportunity, it's not a guarantee, I think there is an opportunity to have the potential to be a leader right off the bat. However, I think in order to get really, really good at it, to get what I call proficient at it, I think that there is a requirement to be developed. So my first supervisory job, I had no training at all. And so on Friday, I was a frontline employee, and on Monday, I was a supervisor. And I was, where's the training? And there was no training. So I spent my entire career not only looking for the development opportunities, looking for the growth opportunities, looking for the trainings, but I also provided those to others so that they had them. So I think that leaders, there are leaders that can be born. However, the being born is only part of the path. The other path is doing all the development work. And I think that you can be not the firstborn in a family and be a leader through coaching, mentoring, and development activities. And I mean, it's so interesting for me when I look across 35 years and have so much data around how individuals become leaders.
Great. You know, as you know, in India, we have almost 6.5 millions of small and medium enterprises, and also, you know, equally large number of startups. You know, India is a young country.
Yes.
So what, according to you, should be the priority of these enterprises, profits or people?
Well, I will tell you, and for me, it's instinctive. I will tell you every time the answer to that question is people. People first, profits follow. And it's an interesting thing because, Nitin, I will tell you, I live in the world of and. So peanut butter and jelly, right? Bacon and eggs. I live in the world of and. There's many people that live in the world of or. And what I mean by that is people or profits. So that's what they ingrain in themselves. The reality is it can be people and profits.
Yep.
Now, which is the leading? The leading is people. How do I know that? Because each and every time that I worked with people and did the things that I'm telling you that I did as a leader and continue to do as a coach and mentor, people were willing to do the actions, the performance that were required to get to the results that we were looking for. So whenever I would go into an organization that required change, I would look at the baseline. So I would look at all the reports and the financials and understand the baseline. And I would put it aside, I'd develop the plans, I'd work with the leaders, and then periodically we'd look at that baseline and see how we were doing against it. The majority of my attention and action was spent out doing the leadership role, the supporting role, the motivating role, and all of that. It was not laboring over the reports. And what happened was I went into an organization where they were very driven by profits. And from the very beginning, the fists were pounding on the table and, you know, when are you going to turn this around? And when are you going to get the profits that we want? And I said, how long did it take you to get it this way? Well, it took us about a couple years to get it this way. I've been in this role for less than 6 months. I promise you that we will get those numbers where you want them to be. We not only got those numbers where they wanted to be, we also got those numbers lower, which was the better, lower than they wanted them to be, and maintained them. And it was through the relationships with the individuals. And in fact, over the weekend, I looked at the goodbye card from that organization, and the impact and the legacy that I left by working with those people is still real today. And it was about the people first. And I don't mean this to sound flippant. I haven't gotten a letter or a card from the profits letting me know that I've done really well with the profits.
How do you see our millennials as next leaders?
The millennials, have been the target of a lot of negative press, I'll call it, right? They don't pay attention. They have a gig mentality. They move from one job to the other. Well, here's my take on it. So the baby boomers, who would typically be your mentors and coaches for these young leaders, are leaving at an unprecedented rate. Then you have the Gen X's, and the Gen X's aren't necessarily as skilled and developed, and no offense to them, as the baby boomers were. So then you have these millennials, and people have negative perceptions towards them. I will tell you, I'm working with millennials on several of the boards that I work with here. Millennials are in almost every single one of my training programs that I do. And what I find is that they're focused, they're attentive, they're engaged, they're willing, they're really, really clear about what it is they do and how they do it, down to the niche. And so what I realized was that shame on the baby boomers for not asking the millennials what level of support and what kind of support they wanted from us. And so every time I get to work with a millennial, again, back to the listening, I always ask them, how can I best support you in the role that you're in right now? How can I best support you in developing as a leader? And what's interesting is it's no different than any other group of the population. When you ask them, do you want to be a leader? And they have a clear yes or a clear no, then you can have a path forward.
Correct.
If you don't ask them, then you don't have a clear path forward. And I will tell you, I'm putting together a program, and everyone that I'm working with is a millennial. There's about 5 or 6 of them. And it's a pure joy. I absolutely enjoy working with them because, as I said, engaged, focused, dedicated. They make the deliverables. So my experience has not been with the stereotype around millennials. And I am really excited that I have the opportunity to not be in one organization developing leaders, but to put myself out there as a business owner to be available to any leaders in the millennial segment.
Phil, if I was to ask you just one word or one message about leadership, what that word would be?
Get into leadership for all the right reasons. What I saw was too many people get into leadership because of the seduction of the role, the power, and the money. And those right reasons are the balance between people and profits.
India by 2030 is going to be the youngest country. What would your advice be to the young population of India?
Building on the formal education that you have, really get engaged in talent development, capability development. Really figure out what it is that you need to learn, want to learn to build out that unique leadership style, right? So it's going to be beyond some of the academics and it's going to be more in the practical. So that's one. The other is take risks. Really look for the opportunities in India and throughout the world and take advantage of those opportunities, because those opportunities, I guarantee you, are what's going to continue to propel your career. And then the other thing is, I would invite India to build the bridges and step out there and be the leader, right? Be the model, so that when people start thinking of different aspects of business and leadership, that the first thing that comes to mind is India and the population of leaders in India.
Thank you, Phil. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Nitin. I appreciate it all.